now again, you probably said, "God, this guy's half mad." It depends on where you want to be. How successful do you want to be, and what do you need to do to achieve it?
When you have a guest on like Nick Popwell, you wonder to yourself how you can follow it. And I tell you, you don't go too far wrong with someone who's played for every team in the club, who's coached every team in the club, who's coached at provincial level, who's coached at national level. Grey Lynch, welcome to Throwing Stones. How are you?
Jeremy, great to see you, and great to be on as well. And listen, I've listened to some of your podcasts already, and I tell you, you've had a few legends there before me now, so it'll be hard to keep up with that.
No, not at all. Not at all. We're excited to have you on. No bigger legend in the coaching world than Grey Lynch, and I think there's going to be something in it for everybody in this. We're going to get to sit under the learning tree. It's funny. I think most people identify you, Greg, as a coach, but you didn't start out there. You were a player originally. So how did you first get involved in Greystones Rugby Club?
Yeah, well, it's going back a while, Jeremy, as too many years to remember. But I think my brother was actually playing in the club. My brother Barry, and he was on the McCarty Cup team. They got to a final, lost in a replay to UCD. A lot of notables in there: Joe Boyle, Jerome O'Brien, Tony Doyle. Johnny Murphy, guys who went on to be legends of the club. But my brother just said to me, he said, look, come down to the club. We were living up on the old Wicklow Road, and I didn't really know anybody. So I went down and I joined the club at under-19s level at that stage, and got a fantastic introduction to the club.
Great stuff. Yeah, I know that you'd some success. You toured to Canada. In 1986, you moved up north to Dungannon for a period of time. I think it was in 88, you got a phone call from Mick O'Loughlin, and he asked you to come back down this direction. Do you have any memories of that particular period, the J3 Cup run, league run that you went on?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, like initially when I finished with the under-19s, I was involved with. I worked my way up to the second team. There was 9 teams in the club at that stage, Jeremy. Like, it was massive from where it is now. Obviously, there's a lot of positive things going on in the club, but adult rugby at that stage was huge. And when I finished up with the under-20s, I actually ended up playing with the seconds. Not quite good enough to get the first team. Like, if the guys that were ahead of me were the likes of John Spud Murphy, who played for Leinster in Ireland, and the other guy then was Desi O'Leary, who also played for Leinster. So yeah, I went up to the north then in the mid 80s, and that worked out. I suppose it was part of the job. I got an opportunity to go and play in Dungannon, which I really enjoyed. I came across some really good people there who had a profound influence on me in relation to coaching. Willie Anderson and Paddy Johns, who'd be a good personal friend of mine as well, too. So that's where that came into. And then you asked a question then about the league, winning the league in Greystones. So I came back to the club. I got a telephone call from Michael O'Loughlin to come back and to partake in that team. And look, the main driver for that was a lot of the guys that were on the team were friends of mine. But Sonny Kenny, who had played for the senior team for a long number of years, former captain of the club, etc. I'd never played with Sonny. So I saw that as a great opportunity for me. And that's why I jumped on that. And listen, we had a famous win, beating Lansdowne in the final, and really good memories on the back of that.
It's funny, isn't it, how a player coming back down from senior rugby can really light a spark at junior level. I think you look at guys like Neil McGanity, who did it recently, or Simon Malone, who's doing it now. Something you'd advocate to ex-firsts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's brilliant. You know, you look at the guys, you look at the J3s this year, the one, the double. I'm looking at that team, and I'm looking at Tom Core. I'm looking at Paul O'Connor. I'm looking at these guys who are just like, they're a credit to the club, you know. And then in my time, you know, some of our very best players, the likes of Paul McNaughton, who played for Ireland, our first international, like, you know, Paul played down the teams, and the lift that gave the other guys around was just fantastic. And you know, I think the experience that those guys get themselves, you know, it's not based on their playing ability. What it is, they're still all excellent players, or they were excellent players. It's the experience that they give the other guys, and that sharing of that. But like, the achievement in that is by getting these guys to integrate into the club is really positive, you know, and that's what you want to see.
Dead right. 1992, you'd largely finished up being an active player. Vincent Byrne asks you to give a dig out with the coaching. It's hard to believe, but you started out your coaching life in Greystones as head coach of the J7s. So it just goes to show you can buy low and sell high in the coaching world of Greystones Rugby Club. Well, I know that you spent a little bit of time coaching the various junior teams. You worked your way up. Eventually, you'd be head coach of the J1s, and that group of players were exceptional, and you had a really successful period. I think the highlight probably was 1996 Metro Cup win. What are your memories of that particular squad of players in that period of time?
Yeah, you know, it was great to get the opportunity to work my way up through the junior teams, because obviously when you're starting, it's a very steep learning curve from the coaching, and you know, thanks to the tolerance of the fellas that were there, they stuck with me on it. So yeah, just we worked up our way to the 96 team. So that was captained by Pat Ryan, and the club hadn't won the Met Cup since 1944. So it was a big deal. The club, the profile that competition got at that particular time was massive as well. From, you know, it was I know people are all digital now, but it was in the Evening Herald every Friday, and Heineken came in behind that and sponsored that as well. And the really pleasing thing about that was the rugby that the players played, and you can see the group of guys there. There's a lot of legends that are in there. Excuse me. At the, you know, the likes of Clive and Ivan Power, and Gusty O'Hanlon as well. And sorry, just we're talking about the junior teams. I noticed there that Gus O'Hanlon was coaching that famous J3 team as well. So credit to him. I love to see guys coming through doing that, and terrific on him. But sorry, we had a very special group of players there to achieve what we achieved, and the teams that we beat along the way. The likes of Turner, the likes of Blackrock in the final. And I always say it, Jeremy, you know, just what you're looking for as a coach is those, you know, personal bests. You see it in Olympics where guys are, when it comes to that particular moment, that they have the ability to perform when it really counts. And that particular group had that ability to be able to do that. So it was really positive for the club, really positive spin-off for the club.
The hits keep coming for that team. In 1997, you'd win the league. And just for context, that's the equivalent of today's Metro 1. So it shows just how strong rugby was in the club at the time. But interestingly, behind the scenes, simultaneously to this, Noel McQuilkin is appointed head coach of the Firsts. Noel was an All Black selector, I think. So, I mean, you're looking at a very high caliber coach. He comes in the summer of 96. By January 97, he leaves. He doesn't last full season in the job. There's an interim period there where there's no head coach formally until May of 97, when Kieran Fitzgerald is appointed. I know that you were disappointed at the time to be overlooked, but you did tell me once it was the best thing to ever happen to you. Why is that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was disappointed, to be fair. I probably was in a situation, Jeremy, where I'd achieved as much as I could with the group of players that we had. So that aspect of winning the Metro Cup for the first time since 1944, the first time of winning that J1 league as it is, with all 15 sides that were competing in it. And sorry, coaching with me at that time was Tony Bellew, and Fran McNabb came in there as well. We'd taken it as far as we could. And I think from the point of view of where the club was, they were looking at profile and somebody who could take the club on, who was more or less guaranteed to take the club on. And Kieran Fitzgerald was a former Lions captain, former Irish captain, coached the Irish team, coached the Irish under-21s. So where he was at in his journey and where I was at in my coaching journey were completely different. So, if I was in the club situation, I would have gone with Kieran Fitzgerald, to be honest with you. So it didn't bother. It worked out well for me because it enabled me then to go on and coach with Trinity, coach with Wanderers and with Bective. So I as head coach, and I had an opportunity as well to go into UCD too. So I would have learned a lot in that period of time, and being able to step up in the right way for myself outside of the bubble of Greystones. Because I think sometimes what happens is and especially from a coaching perspective, maybe there's a perception of a particular person, and you've got to get outside of that box. And you see it with, and I'm not comparing myself to Ronan O'Gara, but in some ways, it's not dissimilar. You need to get out of it, come back in, and so therefore when you come back in, you're talking a different level, and ultimately the teams that I had worked with, the other clubs that I had worked with had all performed to a level that I was comfortable with.
You'd come back to the club in 2002 with a few more strings to your bow, as you were saying, to coach the under-20s. It was the first of two stints you had as head coach of the under-20s. That first stint had some players that would go on to be part of the fabric of the club for 10, 15 seasons after that, with guys like Barry Holmes, Owen Toolan, Aaron Higgs. But I'm curious though, from a coaching perspective, do you approach under-20s rugby differently than you would do were you coaching a senior men's team?
Yeah, I suppose, look, the first thing in relation to that, Jeremy, is when I came back in, it's to surround myself with good people, right? And the people that would have been there with me would have been Pat Toner, who was with me when I was in the club on the first stint in relation to winning that Metro Cup, and with the junior sides working up with that. And Ivan Power would have been with me as well. When we went into Trinity, Ivan was coaching with me. So with that under-20s, I was very fortunate in that Ivan was coming back on board, and so was Pat, and we also had Ross Doyle. So that was number one. So I think, you're saying, do you approach it differently? What you look to do is give the players as positive an environment as you can as a head coach. So that doesn't vary for me, whatever the level is. I look to make sure that I surround myself with really good people, not only good people, but people who have a different skill set to me, and that will enable the group to develop and push the boundaries on. So that would be the key for me. And in relation to under-20s, there's guys of varying levels, and there's no issue with that. And I think what I love about under-20s is, because I know I experienced myself, when you come out of school, there's a perception of you in school, and then all of a sudden that's all gone away. You're starting afresh. It's new. You're in the scene, and a lot of players go and thrive on that. You mentioned Barry Holmes, Aaron Higgs, like those guys are from St. David's, right? And they were the backbone of the senior team for a long number of years. That doesn't take away, Danny Kenny, East Glendalough. You're looking at those guys and saying, listen, they're critical guys to get in. And obviously the likes of Brez and St. Gerard's, who've been the backbone of under-20s for a long number of years, that they are critically important as well. But it's getting the mix of guys together in a different environment and to develop them on as best you possibly can. So that for me stands at any level. Doesn't matter whether it's senior or junior under-20s.
We're jumping forward in time a little bit now, just to your second stint of under-20s. It would start in 2006 and would last 4 or 5 seasons. But I think the highlight probably was in 2008 when you won the pennant. with, in my opinion, the best 20s squad that's ever been. When you have a back row of Dan Kenny, John Downey, and Rob Smith, with Jason Harris right in hooker and Mark Garrity at out half alongside Conor Cleary, you're not doing too badly.
You're missing yourself off that now as well, of course.
Greg, I had a wonderful view of that team from the bench. You were very kind
way
to
out of that. No. You made a positive contribution to that as well. But sorry, that goes to one thing, Jeremy. Sorry for cutting across you. Just, people get caught up in relation to under-20s from the point of view of whether the team plays Premier or Pennant, right? Yeah. It didn't matter a rashers to us whether we played Pennant or Premier. What mattered was we had a good group of guys that we were going to develop on, we were going to have a positive experience, and we were going to look for them to optimize as much as they possibly could within their own ability. So, I look at that in relation to under-20s. And as you rightly said, the club hasn't won a Pennant League since that. So that was a really positive experience for that group of players that was there as well.
Absolutely. One thing I remember from one of those seasons at under-20s, it was half time and team got in a huddle. You went straight over to the referee and you said, what can we do in the second half that would make life easier for you? Is that something that you did often? Trying to get referees on side or giving them
I can't. Geez, that must have been on a good day, I'd say the refereeing thing is very challenging. We saw that last Saturday. To be fair, in the final, maybe we'll get to that, but it's. Refereeing is a very, very difficult challenge, and ultimately what we want to try and do is create a positive environment. And sometimes what happens is you can struggle in relation to the referee's interpretation, and there's no issue from the point of view of a referee. We all make mistakes. Predominantly the people that make the most mistakes are probably the coaches, if the truth be known. So you've got to have a little bit of tolerance in relation to a referee. So I think when you're engaging with referees, to do it in a constructive way. And I would always look to do that and to say, how can we help the ref, and ultimately try to keep them on side. Yeah. What you don't want is a situation where the referee is going to be the difference in relation to a game. So as much as you can control within your control, you look to do that. And I would be an absolute advocate of that. And there are times where you have to bite down and bite your tongue, etc. But you've got to respect the officials, and that's the reality of it.
Go back in time here now to the end of the 2002-2003 season. You come in as head coach of the seniors, and this is the start of one of the biggest growth periods for senior rugby in the history of the club. They'd start in Division 3 and they go all the way up to Division 1, with probably the strongest squad the club's seen in the last 25 years. Rob Connolly, Dave McKechnie, Neil McGanady, Keane McNaughton, Ronan Carroll, Stuart Abbott are all there. And for your time as head coach, the two big feathers in your cap were the 2004 AIL Cup win and the 2005 AIL League win. What are your memories of those couple of seasons you were head coach of the Firsts?
Yeah, so I came in at the end of the under-20s scenario. So we went to South Africa prior to the team had just got relegated to Division 3. So again, for people that are listening who may not be familiar, there was, at that stage in the AIL, there was 3 divisions, 17 teams in each division. And I know the guys are a little bit upset about not getting up this year. Like at that stage, only one team out of 17 got up. So just to give it a context, I think was the key. So we went. Sorry, after the team went down, there was a trip organised, which had been long-standing, to go to South Africa, and ultimately that was massive for the player group because it really got everybody together. we came back that season and we had a really positive season and played some fantastic rugby, and just missed out on promotion by a point, which was an absolute killer. So what they also had was they had a four-way playoff for a cup. So first, second, third, and fourth played for a cup in the league. So we had a semi-final and a final, and I think it was the first final that the senior team actually won in Lansdowne Road, which was really good. It was a tight enough match. I think it was against Ards at the time. So yeah, you can see the player group there. A lot of really good people there as well, and really good management too. So Neil McAnally led out there, and you see Peter Hipple there as well. The McNaughtons who have made an immense contribution, from Paul to Mickey to the three lads, Keane, Connor, and Cormac and Nabil. Like those guys have made a great contribution to the club. But you see a lot of legends in that photograph, Sheriff as well, and Whizzer, as well as obviously Pat Downey and Pat Toner. So look, it was a really great day. I was delighted for the president, Joe Boyle. So that was a real positive. So we finished, and obviously KV there too, leading out as well. We then the following season, we went on and we played unbelievable rugby the following season. We had the highest points scored of any team in the AIL. We absolutely we won all our matches that season bar one, and we won by a country mile. And then we also won that year. We also won the league final. We went back again to the Aviva. And we played Estonians, and we played unbelievable rugby that day. It was such a day, and anybody with the three finals, the way that worked was the three finals were played. So the first, second, and third divisions were all played in the Aviva, and anybody that was privileged to be there on the day would say the best rugby on the day was played by Greystones. So you see the guys that are there. See Stu O'Connell there as well, Liam Murphy, again, brilliant captain, Rob Conley, Ronan Willis, all really key guys, and Barry Holmes and Owen Toolan there as well. And sorry, Dan McGettigan is hiding in behind there as well. So all these guys had made a massive contribution, and it was really positive rugby, to be fair. And I see my two fellas are in the front there.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, you see the passage of time, right? And there's Andrew Lynch, who was playing on the senior team last Saturday. So again, it's fantastic. And sorry, it was lovely to see, as I say, the presidents, for those 2 years. Paul McNaughton was president that year. I was delighted for him personally that the team went so well. And then the previous season, obviously, with Joe Boyle, where we won the first trophy in Lansdowne Road. The senior team had always been close, but never, no cigar. So it was great to be able to deliver that in that situation.
What was the situation with Collie McEntee in that team? I see him there in the top corner. He was under 20s coach, is that right?
Yeah, so Collie would have been, Collie came in Collie came in at under 20s level. Collie would be a good personal friend of mine and also a brilliant coach. So I had asked him, look, would he come in? Frank Doherty obviously was involved as well as director of rugby at the time. So Collie came in, and then when it came towards the playoffs, I think we had a few injuries, and Collie stepped in. And again, it's just the what's going on in his head, his ability to be able to control the team as well was great. So very, very lucky to have Collie involved in the club, and while he was involved with the under-20s, he would be very much involved as well at the senior level, because he would be a guy who would have massive technical skill, and you'd be very foolish and not to use a guy like that who's knocking around. And he had a huge impact, across the line in my time as senior coach.
Something I'm curious to ask you about is, as a coach selecting a captain. Your captains, KV, Liam Murphy, Neil McAnally, John O'Byrne. Why did you pick these guys?
Yeah, well, the reason I would have looked at those guys is because they wouldn't ask anybody to do anything they wouldn't do themselves. That's number one. Number two is they set standards. They set standards on and off the pitch. Number three is they are guys that will challenge. Right. So again, I'm not looking for a situation whereby I'm looking for yes guys. What I'm actually looking for is guys that, you know, that see things and say, well, look, did we think of, or what about this? Now, obviously, that, you know, it's not an abdication from the coach, the point of view of a coach. But what you can't have is you can't have a dictatorship. What you want to do is you want to empower players so they have an opinion and they believe that they are being listened to. Because ultimately, it's the player that's actually playing on the pitch.
Moving on here, I want to ask you about coaching. And it might be a broad question, but I know you're probably itching to answer it. What do you see the overarching role of a head coach at a club?
Yeah, there's an awful lot in that, Jeremy. So I mean, what I would do is I give you bullets in relation to it, and I think more from the point of view of people that might be listening in and say, well, geez, I'm a coach and I'd really welcome like what your thoughts are. And some of this, it would be useful for you, and some of it, you know, you might give a skip to. I think number one is you want to have a philosophy. So how you want to see the game played. Okay, so that'd be number one for you. Number two, then, I suppose, is values. So what are the values of the team? So how do you want to be seen on and off the pitch? Now, you don't make that call, right? What you do is you get your players and you work it out in a room and say, that's what we want to be seen as, right? So that's number one and number two. Number three, then, is putting in the season plan. So what's your plan like? So that periodization, so to make sure that you're peaking at the right time and dialing it down. There's strength and conditioning guys. And again, I'm aware that people may not have that access to strength and conditioning guys, but just think about how you're planning your season. So what you want to do then is, again, it's around, you also want to talk to your players around selection. So, you know, so there's no ambiguity in relation to it. How is the team being selected? When is it being selected? So if I'm not being selected, what's the metrics for me not being selected? So that aspect of having a functional role analysis. So the functional role is specifics for a particular position. So the guy is looking and saying, well, am I functional? Am I, you know, the guy, the prop, can he scrummage? Can he lift in a line out? Is he there on restarts? So they're the sort of basics, and then you work it down for each position and where they're at. And then obviously you've got the core skills, the catch, you know, the run, the tackle, the continuity, those sort of things. So they're the sort of metrics that you're looking at. Once you have that, then what you're looking to do is you're looking to break out your sessions. So your sessions should be themed in relation to what's your session about, you know, from the perspective, is it attack, is it defense, and how do you break it down between set piece and the adaptive game, the core skills. Sorry, I'm going on. Sorry, it's a big question.
Keep going. It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah,
keep going.
Yeah, and then I think where you're at then is once you have done that, what you're doing then is where some people may be in a position to do this or not, I don't know, but just that ability to be able to do analysis. So, you know, some people have different matrix in relation to team analysis, and what does that look like? For me, the key with that analysis is that analysis is shared across the team. So everybody has an opportunity to understand the collective. So what we're looking to do as a collective, what's our matrix in relation to performance as a collective, right? Also, what you want to be able to do is there's a requirement at times, depending on the level, to be able to do opposition analysis. And I know that may not be applicable to some people, but there is, if I'm involved in AIL, I'm doing opposition analysis all the time. And ultimately, when you're feeding that back to the players, it's 10 or 15 minutes. After that, then it's the analysis after the game. So what did that look like? And ultimately sharing that with the team, and where can we improve? So the analysis is showing players of what they did well and what they can actually do better, right? And again, and having the matrix to be able to show them and say, this is what the world looks like. So if you're doing that sort of stuff, you should be getting a bit of change in relation. You need to be talking to your players. You need to be encouraging your players. The glass is always half full when you're talking to any player. It's not half empty. So don't hit players with lots of negatives. That's not. Listen, and again, we're all wired differently. And what you may find is you may get the player who's bulletproof, who can't, you know, I've done no wrong. And then you get the opposite, to a fella who focuses, or a girl who focuses in relation to what they have done wrong. And that's not what you want. You want a happy medium to be able to share with them and say, listen, this is what you did really well. And ultimately, if you can do it visually with them, because a lot of us are very visual, when you're doing analysis, to ask them, listen, what do you think? What could you do better in this situation? But also make sure that at no stage are you looking to embarrass players either. I think from the point of view of the coaching piece as well, of bringing people together, right? The coach is the figurehead, you know, and I would always use the analogy from the point of view when the team isn't doing particularly well, I'll hang around a little bit more in the bar afterwards. If it's doing well, I can go after a couple of pints, and that's what I would use. But for me, you know, it's about trying to be constructive and ultimately surrounding yourself with really good people.
I'm curious there, you'd spoken about opposition analysis and then also reflecting on maybe the game that you would have played in the weekend. If you have a training session planned for Tuesday, you know, weeks in advance, but it turns out that we were terrible in attack on the weekend, would you throw everything out the window and just change that session on the fly, tweak it to address the previous challenges?
Yeah, well, you know, what they say, failed plan to fail. You know, so you got to have it. You got to have a plan in, but you got to have the flexibility to be able to acknowledge is there areas that we're looking at. But I'm not only looking at areas that we mightn't have gone so well in relation to that particular game. I'm also looking at who we're playing, and I'm saying, listen, you know, so while we would have a general philosophy in relation to how we play, I'm saying, well, how do we measure that in relation to what variable do we have to do to ensure that we're maximizing our strength and exposing their weakness. So that's where that analysis actually comes in. But sorry, you're right, in relation to the training session itself, that's where the homework goes in. So I think what a lot of people, when they're on the calls, they see the coach rocking up on the Tuesday and Thursday and Saturday, and potentially looking at a seconds match on a Friday or a Sunday. Like, the work that goes into it, you know, if you're doing it correctly, is fairly full on, you know. And you know, what you don't want to be seen to do is shortchange anybody, and that would be key. And sorry, we're talking about analysis, etc. I appreciate that there are people that are on this that may not have access to that. But all you can do is prepare the team as well as you possibly can be. The other little tip I'd give people is that when you're coaching as well, right? And again, I say we're all made up in different ways. I probably need to reflect after a game, right? And ultimately, because what you've got guys who are highly stimulated at the end of the game, right? And the ability to be able to rationalize out in relation to what's actually happened. So what I would respectfully suggest to anybody that's listening in, you know, try and minimize your comments after the game. Just be very specific in relation to the very obvious. If you have an opportunity to step back and reflect, because what will happen is when you back down there on the Tuesday night or whatever night it is, when you're talking to that player pool, you know, you'll have a lot more substance. If you have access to a video, fantastic, you'll be able to reflect on it. But even if you haven't, you'll think about things afterwards, and to be able to work through. If it's a scenario whereby you don't have access to videos, etc., maybe what you should be doing with that is, because there's so much going on in the game, you know, the capability of taking it all in. I genuinely don't know anybody who's capable of doing that. I think what you do is you look for people that you respect and you trust, and maybe ask them to look at certain areas that you would feel, right, okay, can they support me in relation to that as well? So that'll be a little tip for what it is.
What's your expectation of an AIL player outside of turning up to training Tuesday and Thursday?
I would look at it, and you know, people are motivated, players are motivated in different ways, you know. So some it's the competition, some are because, you know, sorry, I'm talking about the key drivers. You know, what's the key driver for somebody, you know, to be successful, to play at the optimum level, or to come down and play with my mates, and it's all at varying degrees of the dial in relation to different players. Yeah. So if I was looking at from the point of view of players that are playing in AIL, my expectation of that would be is when they come down, they're prepped and they're ready. Sorry, well, let's work it back. So the game is finished on the Saturday. my expectation is, and depending on how quickly the following game is, my expectation is they do proper recovery. So that's stretching, whatever it is, taking it handy. If there's a game the following weekend, I don't expect them to be going bananas. Now, again, you probably said, God, this guy's half mad. You know, it depends on where you want to be. You know, how successful do you want to be, and what do you need to do to achieve it? Because ultimately, nobody gives you something for nothing. So it's all about little sacrifices along the way, and understanding when you have those nights, they're really special nights, and because ultimately you've made the sacrifices to get to where you want to get to. So the recovery piece is really important. Coming down, you know, if you've any injuries or bits and pieces, linking in with the coach prior to, so the coach is aware of and can plan their sessions accordingly. I think from the point of view of going into the matches, obviously being punctual, all those sort of things, being honest. If you have an issue, if there's something that's gone on in work, or if there's something that's personal to you or whatever, because the coaches aren't mind readers, right? And ultimately, you know, it's that relationship and that trust. If there is something that's going on and you need a break or whatever, I'd imagine that the majority of people that are listening on this, that are coaches, are prepared to listen to you and say, Grant, this guy needs a break, and we leave him off, etc. And, you know, as long as people aren't taking a mick in relation to it, you know, that's that. So come down the right mindset. So when you come in, try and park everything at the door, come in the right frame of mind, you know, train as you're going to play. So train as you're going to play. And if you're training at high intensity, the probability is you'll be able to mirror that on a Saturday. If you're not training at that intensity, the probability is you may not be able to do it. Now, there's some special players that are out there that can rock up on a Saturday. There's a handful of them, I would say, to a degree, but you know, definitely have your right mindset. I think also do your analysis. So, you know, if there are videos that are floated around, have a look at the stuff, but also have a look at the stuff that you've done well. Be reflective on yourself in a constructive way. You know how you're wired, and if there are things that you need to improve on, if there are things that you need to ask the coach about, ask the coach. Don't be afraid to challenge or ask. Like, I would certainly welcome that. I didn't have all the answers when the fellas came to me on a Tuesday, but when Thursday came, I did. If I had to go and look again, you know. So, and then when you're coming to the match, then again on the Saturday, get your mind in the right place. Make sure if you've former footage or if there's analysis that's been done or whatever, that you've done as much as you possibly can to make sure you're prepped. Now, for people who aren't playing AIL, there isn't sorry, to leave out the video piece, just the prep is the key, and make sure that you look after yourself, come down the right mindset, and what that'll do is that'll allow you to perform at your optimum.
Yeah, dead right. Last question on the coaching piece, and something I've always wondered: why do you stand behind the posts to watch games?
Well, I love the general movement, and I love shape, and I love to see where guys are, and love to see where the opposition is. So in general terms, what you're looking to do in attack, you know, and there's lots of different formations. You hear it now, 1-3-3-1. I would have a different sort of philosophy in relation to that general movement, but ultimately, what you're looking to do is you're looking to create more numbers in attack than they have in defense. And then from a defensive perspective, you're looking to mirror the attack. So where better to see it than behind the goals? Yeah. You can actually see the general shape. If you're looking at it on the sideline, the probability is what you're looking for is you're looking for the contact. You're looking at the continuity. You're looking at the physical contact gain line scenario. You get a better sense around that. You know, so there's advantages 2 and 4 for whichever one you want to stand on. I think for me, it's just I get a better perspective for myself in relation to what I want to see out of the game. While other coaches may be different. Yeah,
no, absolutely makes sense. We'll go back to 2006. You step back from the head coach role at Greystones. You told me before you were operating at a very high capacity. What led to the decision to pare back a little bit?
Yeah, so like the first year, I came in at the back end of season, went to South Africa. We won the cup the first year that we were there. We won the cup and the league the following year. We went, cup and league, and obviously promotion. We then, the following season, we finished mid-table in 2006. At that stage, I was doing Leinster under 20s. I was doing Ireland under-18 club side, and I was doing Greystone Senior, and I was trying to keep my job in the bank as well as keeping my marriage intact. So, you know, something had to give, you know, and I felt from the point of view of where I was at, that I was like, I had done the senior thing, and I was very comfortable in relation to, I'd spoken with Frank and with Collie McEntee at that time. And I had said, listen, this is the way we're thinking. And in fairness, we worked very well together as a three. What we agreed to do was swap, and myself and Collie would swap over. And in fairness, Collie has a really great story and success there himself, which he had led out. But also, to be fair, we went back to the under-20s, and Steve Cranley was our manager at that stage as well. So for me, it was trying to manage all the pieces, like the demands that I would have had in relation to Leinster, and I had worked with Leinster for 9 seasons between at under 19s and under 20s. Like what Leinster was very much a quick hit. So Leinster would have been the summer months, and we would have been ready for the interprovincial series in September. That's the way it used to be. There used to be an interprovincial series. We played the 3 provinces, and whoever won. And then obviously the Irish under 20s came in. Was around March, around Six Nations time. That's when that came in. But for me, in relation to that, it was just creating a bit of shape on it, getting the guys organised and allowing the guys to go out and perform. The Irish under-20s was completely, the Irish under-18s, should I say, Irish under-18 club side that I coached for 6 seasons. Really enjoyed that. That was fantastic, because what you were getting players from the local clubs, and what you're looking to do is merge them into a really good side, which we managed to do more often than not. And I think for us, like we would have had 7 or 8 camps which were held over weekends, because you would have had guys coming in from the different provinces, and we also had the exiles guys flying over as well. And what we were doing was we were getting ready for the European Championships, which would have been held over in either Italy or France in the seasons that I was there. And it was a fantastic tournament. So you would have had different leagues. You would have had, obviously Ireland would have been in the top level, but you would have had Division 2 and Division 3, which was going on at the same time at under-18s. So all of a sudden, when you were getting to semi-finals or final, you know, you could find yourself playing in front of 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 people. So it was brilliant for that. But also as a coach, what I really enjoyed about that Irish under-18s was the ability to take a guy from a club scenario, whereby the guys were the difference with the guys at club level versus schools is the only difference for me. The only difference is the training age. Because when you go to school, what you have is you've got guys who are training 3 days a week in all probability, playing a match and possibly doing a gym session as well. So, you know, going 4 or 5 days a week, right? The guys in the clubs were rocking up on the Tuesday and Thursday. You know, it might have been a little bit of hit and miss depending on what the club was. So what the provinces do for these guys now as well, to be fair, it wouldn't all come down to Ireland, but in relation to what Leinster and the other provinces were doing for the development of these guys, they were either with the province or they were with ourselves. But ultimately, the gain, you could see a notable improvement in these players over the course of the season. Whereas in the Leinster scenario, it was really just an organisation thing and get them out. You see the picture there, you put up, you know, the guys that would have been, you know, that we would have seen. You see sitting there beside me, the captain of our team there, Tyg Furlong, and you see Jack Carthy there beside him, who is Captain Connacht. You see Alan O'Connor, who's Captain Ulster in that picture alone. John Murphy there. Chris Farrell, who played for Ireland and Munster. O'Masson played for Connacht. You can see who else we got. We got Kieran Marmion there as well, who played for Ireland and Connacht as well, and Tom Daly, who played for Leinster and for Connacht at the moment. And then in between that there, you see 2 guys who come through the system as well, who are playing with Greystones, Dan Mannion and Ferdy Kenny. So, like, you know, if going from Lions to a club player, right? It doesn't matter. Like I would believe that if you chat with any of those guys, and I would have met with Tyg there, I'd say about 12 months ago, and we were talking about from the point of view of the club rugby, and his recollections would be really positive. And that's a guy who's probably the best tight head prop in the world. So that's what you're actually doing. And when you're actually involved with those guys, that ability to be able to take through. So the message here for anybody. Sorry, so we're talking at a really high level. But the message here for anybody who's doing youth rugby, right, is, you know, where's the next Tyke Furlong? Where's the next Jack Carthy? Where's the next Dan Mannion? You know, where are these guys? So the role that the coaches are playing in youth rugby is absolutely massive in the club. And I think, you know, it's an acknowledgement of that, to be fair.
I want to move on and talk to you a little bit about recruitment. You were involved in recruiting some of the best players in the country to play for Greystones. You look at Jason Harris-Wright and Conor Cleary, they're probably the best forward and the best back in the whole island at the time. Nowadays, if you go for a walk up in Go Gym there in Charlesland, have a look at the local guys with Belvedere crests, with Lansdowne, with UCD, Trinity. I've even seen Clontarf up there. How do you stop that stem of talent leaving and seeking to play elsewhere? You look at Belvedere, they just won the Macquarie Cup. I think 4 Presentation College Bray guys on the squad. So what's your thoughts there?
Well, you know, I think it's, you know, to be fair, in recruitment, absolutely, I'd be sorry, I think I would be strong in that particular area, to be fair, because again, it's selling the vision to players, but ultimately in relation to Jason Harris-Wright and Conor Cleary, I think they probably would have come more in the back of Collie McEntee. But I think that from the point of view of when you're looking at the club, and you're looking at it and say, if a guy has come through from the youth level, minis and youth level, and they're not coming to the under 20s, the question's got to be why? Like, why is that not happening? And what's the thing? I understand, like as a coach, I'd understand why somebody, you know, would decide that they want to go and play in college. They want to go to UCD or they want to go to Trinity. But if you're going into UCD or if you're going into Trinity, make sure, right, that, you know, Trinity and UCD, you know, phenomenally strong and good luck to them. There's no issue there. But it does become an issue if it's you that's waddled in there, right? And your number 8 prop or whatever, right? Whereas you come down to Greystones, the probability is there will be a need for you. And ultimately, we spoke earlier in this, Jeremy, about that journey. We spoke about Simon Malone, you know, at under 20s level, captain of the senior team, playing at the double winning team on the J3s. So there is a journey and there's a really positive story to be told. So guys that go in to those other clubs, you know, I personally don't get it. I don't understand it. You know, I'm not sure who's linking in with Prez. I'm not sure who is linking in with Jarrett. I know in our time that we would have done that. Like the fact that the club couldn't field an under 20 side last year, obviously would be seen as a big disappointment. And it's not a positive reflection on all the work that's actually gone on at the youths and the mini level, and that has to be called out. So I think it's going back to that what we were talking about, that USP. So what is the USP for the club? So what makes you different in relation to talking to that player and doing it in a meaningful way and being able to point to examples? Like Greystones has a really good story to tell. You just got to make sure you get the audience and you've got the connections which are different schools. And it doesn't apply just to Prez and St. Gerard's. It's all those schools that we talk about, East Glendalough, Brenton. In fairness, looking at Temple Carrick at the moment, like what they've achieved has just been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. You know, and that's a real success story as well. Yeah.
You touched on it a little bit there. You might want to just talk about your involvement in the youths and minis. I know it's quite important to you.
I got a call then from Alan Keys, and he just said to me, look, he said, would you consider getting involved in the minis and youths? And I was minis and youths. It was an area I hadn't done, right? And it was something that was new to me to be able to learn. And I said, right, I was all about, listen, something that's a different experience. And I said, right, Gary Nolan was down there at the time. And I agreed with that. And I said, that's fine. I said, I would go in and do it. And what the club wanted was one club, one vision. So what I'm talking about is at minis level, right? what you're looking for there is you're looking for participation, right? And you're looking for everybody as a winner, regardless of ability, right? And what you don't want to see down there is any Alex Ferguson, right? So what we wanted to say, listen, this is about the kids. So when every kid comes off that pitch, they feel valued, regardless of whether you've won the under-9s league. Nobody really gives a rashers. What they care about is how did that player feel about themselves, right? And if that player, before they come to youth, so it comes to the age of 12 or 13, the kid is then at a crossroads. And what happens is they decide, well, okay, am I playing Gaelic? Am I playing soccer? Am I playing camogie? What am I doing, right? So if they decide to go away from Greystones Rugby Club and say, well, look, I'm doing something else. What you want for that kid is every time they pass by the door of the club, that they have a positive memory of that. So what we look to do with that is we look to do coach education. So the coach education piece was massive for us. Well, we did it from the point of view of ensuring that everybody was on the same wavelength, understood the required technique to skill, breaking technique to skill. But also what we did was we made an investment as well in relation to strength and conditioning. And strength and conditioning was around, we got the guy, I had a contact in the IRFU at the time who was overseeing the strength and conditioning for all underage Irish sides. And Des Ryan is his name. He's involved with Satanta at the moment. He's a great guy, absolutely super guy. Des came out and we got all the coaches involved in strength and conditioning. So it didn't matter whether the kid was going to go on to play rugby or to go to do another sport. Ultimately, they got value out of that. And the parents could see they got value out of it. And what we did from the coaching perspective is we looked to upskill the coaches. So that was really big. I can see it, right? There are other clubs that would kill for what Greystones have. Absolutely kill. So therefore, if you have this fantastic minis and youth scenario, how do you plug it in across the club? And, I think as well with the minis and youths, a shout out to Rory O'Connor, Paul Mahan, Miriam there as well, getting the women's up and running. And I see there, the kids underage playing at representative level, playing at national level. Fantastic achievement. The work that goes on there is brilliant. And I so admire. I love the Seagulls as well. Highlight this year. One of the highlights for me, the Seagulls playing at halftime again in the Aviva against when Leinster and Connacht, they came on at halftime. So if you want to know what life is about, come down on a Sunday morning and watch the Seagulls, and it'll give you a perspective on life. And the guys that run it, I know Keith is involved doing that, and they do a fantastic job. Dead
right. Curious your reflection on the season just gone. We're recording this on a Thursday evening. Greystones just lost to Blackrock on Saturday. Heartbreaking for everybody. But I think you were probably at every game this year. Do you have any thoughts on the season as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'd say that when the guys reflect in relation to it, look, it's tough going like when you finish on top of the league and there's no automatic promotion. And I think Wesley and Queens were in the same scenario as well, where they didn't come through in it, and all of a sudden the ground rules are changed. But what you would say about that is that's tough, But having said that, like once it's on, right? It's top four scenario. You just get on with it. I thought that during the season, when you looked at the first run of matches, the first batch, when you're playing home and away, they won 8 out of 9 matches. So that was really positive. And then in the second half of the season, I don't know whether some teams kind of worked them out a little bit, but ultimately the team still ended up finishing on top of the league. Some of the matches they showed fantastic resilience. My favorite one, I loved Sligo away, where Marmion kicked a kick at the end to win it. But that showed really good resilience, and they've shown that through the season. And then they went into semi-finals, and to be fair, with the semi-finals, like a loaded Corinthians team came down. With four guys playing with Connacht Academy in their backline, and again they showed brilliant resilience where they came through on the last minute to win that game. Went to the final then on Saturday, and I'd be honest with you, I probably would have been concerned going in from the forward perspective. And, that's, I thought that when Greystones played them the last time, that they had their number in relation to the scrum and the line out. And to be fair to the guys, they really fronted up extremely well on that. I thought they did really, really well on that. It's difficult when you get up to, and they stuck in there. They went to 20 points to 3. Andrew Lynch scores a try. And it is a try. And it's disallowed, because the touch judge can't cope with that. You still probably say, listen, at 20 points to 3, with about 20 minutes to go, that's a winning score. And I think, and it's hard to say it, it's all about momentum. So there were 3 or 4 moments at the end, where it wasn't about Blackrock, it was about Greystones in relation to just not pulling it off at the right time. Now, it's easy to be the hurler on the ditch. I would have to say, you've asked me a question around what I thought. I thought they played some fantastic rugby this year. I love the fact that there's a mix of guys in there. Oh yeah, one of the highlights for me near the end of that match, with Corinthians, and it's coming near the end, and the Corinthians are going through phase after phase after phase, and Rob Connolly is called off the bench, right? And Rob Connolly hit a fella such a tackle. It took me back 20 years when I was coaching 20 years ago, and you look at the contribution of some of the guys that were there, like the 2 Marmions, fantastic. Connor Pierce, fantastic. Con Callan, Ferdia, Dan Mannion, all the young lads that are there. Dan Kenny has had a super impact in relation to this year. So I think what the guys have got to do is they got to feel the hurt, which I know they did in relation to Saturday. What they got to do is put that in the bottle and wait for next season and to pull it out again. And hopefully, look, with a few reinforcements, I think probably, if anything happened to Connor Pierce, he's been unbelievable. He's been unbelievably durable. Sorry, and a shout out to Dougie as well. To be fair, he was fantastic during the season as well. I'm leaving out a few of these lads, but I'm thinking about Matt O'Brien there as well. And sorry, Andrew Keeley, to be fair to him, he's been a real excellent servant to the club over the duration as well. So I'd say, listen, people have got to dust themselves off, acknowledge that, over the duration of the league itself, they were the most consistent team. That takes some going. Learn that they did a fantastic performance against a Corinthians team. They were nearly home against Blackrock, and just momentum just swung in the wrong way. But do you know what was brilliant when I was down there was the crowd. Like, there must have been over 2,000 people down there on Saturday.
Biggest I've seen since the 90s.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So, if the players are to get a little bit of lift, that's the lift they need to say, listen, there's lots of people in your corner. There's lots of people rooting for you. There's lots of people who want you to do well. And sorry, from the management perspective as well, to acknowledge the management too, because, a lot of good work done there as well. So it's just a question of, I say, it hurts. It still hurts. I know my fella is, he's going around with a black armband, but ultimately, you dust yourself off, and then you get ready to go on the horse again. So the guys should enjoy their summer.
I just want to ask you a couple of questions before we go. What's your favorite memory as a coach? Not necessarily with Greystones, but what's your standout memory?
Geez, it's a really good question, Jeremy. I mean, I like with Greystones, you look at it and you say, well, look, we did the Met Cup, we did the J1 League, we won that pennant league, we won the two cups in the Aviva, we won a promotion as well. So lots of really good memories in that. I have great memories from the point of view of the last stint that I did with Wanderers as well. Where winning leagues, winning promotions, etc. That was really positive. I suppose, if I was putting the pin in my collar, I think that winning the double, going up and winning in the Aviva was great, and the fact the style that we actually won it in too. I think that was really positive. But I'm so fortunate. I've loads of positive memories. Sorry, I've lots of dark ones too. But but I'm hanging on the positive ones at the moment.
Are you going to tell me the best player you coached at Greystones?
It's players that can make a difference on their own, a particular moment in time that the other players would acknowledge as well and say, this person is a person who can make a difference. So I would say very fortunate. Like I coached with Ivan Power, obviously. I would look at the likes of Stu O'Connell, Nabil McNaughton, Dave McKechnie, and Rob Connell, right? They were guys in a given moment in time that could actually turn it out of nothing. You know, they could make something happen when it wasn't naturally happening. The other guys that, you know, you'd be looking at and saying, well, look, you know, I'd go back to the tight head prop, you know. If the scrum isn't working, well, you know, it doesn't matter about Dave McKechnie or Nabil or the rest of the guys, you know. So yeah, you've got to be careful with that one. But I've answered it in the way that it was asked, in good faith, without, please God, anybody coming to my house and throwing paint at it, you know.
So, your passion for the club, I think, jumps out at anybody that meets you. I know you've spent time in other clubs, but you've always found your way back here. And I think that Greystones is a big part of your life. But I think maybe more importantly, you are a big part of Greystones Rugby Club. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you today. Really enjoyed it. And we'll speak again soon.
Great. Thanks, Jeremy. Mind yourself.